Welcome, Mr. Lewis, assistant editor of the Daily Mirror, a Mirror football writer and producer of a weekly news column.
Thank you very much indeed for having me here, Gloria. I appreciate it a great deal.
Thanks. Were you named after anyone?
No, I wasn't. It's interesting because I'm from a Caribbean background, but Darren would appear to be a Welsh name, if I'm not mistaken. But I wasn't named after anybody at all, no.
How is editing different from writing and producing a weekly news column?
Well, the first two things you mentioned, they're all about journalism, decision making, understanding what is important to the readers, and being able to write about something that is important to the people who are reading it. And certainly with tabloid newspapers, you don't have as much space as you would do in broadsheet, bigger newspapers. So there is even more of a skill being able to get that information down to a framework that enables people to be able to consume it, to read it, to understand it very easily.
And when you first started, did you find it difficult balancing all the three when you first started? Find it difficult?
No. I've always wanted to be a journalist. So ever since I was very young, I'd been reading tabloid newspapers. I'd been reading all sorts of books, and I'd been watching people that I admired for a long time. So from my point of view, it wasn't difficult to be able to combine the three. I've always had an opinion, and columns are about opinions. Columns are about looking at what's happening at the moment. Tell me something at the moment that you feel very strongly about in the news or in sport or in life.
Tennis.
There you go. So then if you have a very strong opinion about tennis, and I were to give you 600 words to write about something relating to tennis, I'm sure you'd be able to come up with something, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
What would you write about?
I'd probably write about technique, your technique, your plan to play tennis, your tactics, and your attitude on the court.
But you see, a column isn't necessarily about the technical areas of sport. A column is your opinion about something that might have happened in sport or an issue connected with sport. And that's if you're a sport columnist. If you are a news columnist, you might want to write about an issue that you feel affects a lot of people that you go to school with. So you might, for example, have a view on the fact that from September, there are a number of schools that are going to ban mobile phones. So you can bring them to school, but between 8:40, 8:30, whenever school starts, and 3:15, they have to be locked away. That's the policy at the moment. But my understanding is that from September, you will not be able to bring any smartphone whatsoever to school. It has to be a very basic phone. Now, do you think that's right or wrong?
Right?
Why?
Because if you're bringing smartphones into your school, you're obviously going to get distracted. For instance, if you get a message from someone, you're going to instantly go to answer it and forget that you're currently in a lesson, then you wouldn't be able to answer it. So I think it's right. Not
What
wrong.
about those people who say that they need apps to be able, for example, to stay in contact with their parents, apps to let their parents know where they are? What about all those people? Do they need their social media apps?
I mean, if they're in a current like family emergency where something really serious is going on, I'm sure the teachers would at least make it acceptable for them to have their phone in class in case like something very big occurs and they need to go talk to their parents or something. I think that would be acceptable, but anything else, I don't think. And also I think the teachers, if it was like some kind of like they were trying to trick the teachers so they could have their phone. The teachers would also check in with the parents and stuff. But yeah, other than that, I think it's right. No.
And what you've just done there is formulated opinion and explained why you have that opinion. And that's what a column is. It's that basic. And I'm sure you would be able to do very well committing that opinion to 600 words, because if you were to speak to some of your friends, I'm sure there would be some of them who would disagree with what you've said and say, actually, I think we should be able to have iPhones at school. I don't think it stopped people from achieving high grades at school. So if that's the case, why should you ban it for everybody? And then you'd have to be able to find the detail, the research, the information, what we call the anecdotal evidence. Maybe you'd speak to other people to find out opinions that might back up your own.
Mm.
So that's what being a columnist is. It's being able to articulate the views of people or yourself on an issue that is the hot topic, if you like.
Mm. What inspired you to become to write about football writer?
um, I love watching football. I love playing football. I'm probably a better writer than I am a player. And so it was a really fantastic opportunity when it presented itself to me. And I've never, ever regretted being a football writer. It's the best job in the world.
Mm. And when you got this opportunity to write about football, did you hesitate or did you go straight into it?
I not only did I not hesitate, but for the first 2 years, I did it without being paid at all because I just wanted to write about football. And I loved it so much. And really and truly, when you love something, then you're not really working, you're having a good time.
What inspired you to produce a weekly news column?
Well, it was offered to me because I had views and opinions on a lot of things. And so my boss at the time said to me, would you like to write about these opinions on a weekly basis? And I was very, very grateful for that opportunity because it allowed me to say things that I feel are very important uh, to particular sections of society, if you like, that I feel aren't necessarily represented very well.
Mm. Can you tell us about a memorable challenge you faced and how you overcame it?
Oh, a memorable challenge. Well, actually, one of the biggest challenges I had relates to the column because when I was asked to do the column, my first thought was I've read so many fantastic columnists across newspapers for many, many years. And how could I write a column that is anywhere near as good as any of theirs? How could I even get into that area? And so it was really about overcoming my own initial doubts that I could do it. But I often say to people, I had to take my own advice because I often say to people that you have to believe in yourself, and that's what I had to do. And the column was able to win an award last year. So it is a good message always to believe in yourself and what you can do.
Mm. How do you stay motivated and continue to innovate as a writer and a producer?
Well, there is always something happening in the news agenda, and that motivates you. There is always something that um, somebody asks you to write about, something that you feel strongly about, something that shocks you, something that matters to the people you know, the people who are closest to you, to young people. There is always something that happens, and that is where the motivation comes from.
Hmm. And did you ever have at that point, did you ever have like where you lost your motivation for like 1 week?
No,
Lost your motivation. You always had it.
I've always had that motivation. It's important to have that motivation because that's what keeps you going. When you're a journalist, you are very much a self starter. You are the person who determines how much you will achieve.
Mm,
So you have to keep setting bars for yourself so that you can keep going. If you rely on someone else, then maybe journalism isn't for you. The best journalists, they actually push themselves to keep producing. And I think that's what you should bear in mind.
mm. Your creative process like as a writer?
Right. So I don't have a creative process as such. I'm generally driven by the kind of thing that inspires me to have an opinion. It's most weeks there'll be something in the news agenda or something that is happening generally that has really got me going
Mm,
and really inspired me to think I need to write about that. Some weeks there are two or three things, and there aren't enough things for me to. There isn't enough space for me to write all about all three of them, so I've got to put the other two on hold. Um, and with me, if I am going to write about something, I'll do one of two things. I'll check if somebody's done the subject before. I'll check my facts to make sure that um, I can't be the only one thinking this. And is it true? Is it true that this has happened or that has happened? Um, I wrote a column once about homework because I remember somebody saying that in primary school, homework is pointless. And I disagreed with this considerably. So I went away to look at the statistics for people who did homework at school against the people who didn't do homework at school. And I also did a little bit of research into the person who had said it and found that they came from a background that was considerably better than the average person, particularly the average black person. So it's very easy for them to be able to say homework is pointless because they're never going to have the difficulties that the average person has going through their lives if they don't commit themselves to learning. So to do that column, I did need to go away and do the research that was able to back up what I needed to do. And you've always got a better chance of being able to put together any piece of writing if you go away and you do the research to back up what you say. Otherwise, anybody could just say anything without facts. And if you don't have those facts to back you up, then your argument falls down very quickly.
mm. Now we know you're also an assistant editor. So how is that different from your creative process as a writer? As
Well, sometimes my job also entails writing. If something happens in the news agenda that's important, then I might have to write my opinion to go alongside the news story. Um, but also, what I do is I'm involved in the decision making process as well. I help to provide context for some of the stories that might be in the news agenda. We'll decide how we're going to do those stories. It's a lot about decision making, and that's very different to writing a
mm,
column on a week to week basis.
mm. And how has it evolved? How has your style evolved over the first paragraph you've written and now?
Well, I've become a lot more confident, and I think if you practice anything, you become good at it. And it's something that I would advise you to do. Write as often as you can, because when you start writing, you're not very sure. As I said to you early on, when I was given a column, I wasn't quite sure whether or not I was qualified to start to go into an area where there'd been so many fantastic writers. But you can only do you. And what I decided to do is focus on what I could do. And over time, I became a lot more confident at being able to do it. And that's what my advice would be to you, to write as often as you can. The more you write, the more easily it comes to you, the more confident you get writing, and the more you come to understand. And then other subjects will come up, and you will say, I've got a view on that. I've written about that before,
Mm.
because you will have written about it before.
Yeah.
Um, so, from your point of view, from my point of view, um, yeah, it's all about developing.
Mm. Now, what is your biggest accolade?
Accolade. Well, the award I received for the column, commentator of the year, tabloid commentator of the year, means a lot to me, because when I came into national newspapers, I came into the sports section rather than the news section. And so to move across to the news section and to win an award, it was very nice. It meant a lot.
Mm. And how did you feel? What emotions were running through your head when you got this award?
Shock. Shock, because there are lots of very, very, very good writers, columnists. I keep saying it, in this country. So to win an award ahead of them was a real shock, but I was very pleased.
Yeah. And how do you balance your family life with your professional life?
Um, that's a good question. Um, we try to spend as much time as we can together, because the job does take a lot away, and it's really important to have family time. Um, and so I try to make as much time for my family as possible. We go to the cinema a lot. Um, we went to see Karate Kid Legends 3 weeks ago, which was really good.
Yeah.
Um, and we play PlayStation a lot, too much. Um, so yeah, I try to spend as much time as possible as I can.
Mm. What was the film? Was it good?
Yeah, Karate Kid. It was very good. I hadn't seen any of the I knew about the previous Karate Kid films, um, Mr. Miyagi and um, Daniel-san,
Yeah.
but I hadn't seen parts 2 and 3. So, but you don't need to have seen parts 2 and 3 to really enjoy the
Yeah.
Legends film. Have you seen it?
No, but I've watched all the other films, so I'm dying to watch it.
No, you've got to watch it. It's really good.
Yeah. So, can you tell us about a project you're working on and what you hope to achieve?
um, well, we are working on a series of interviews at the moment, uh, in relation to a book that we are going to serialize. I can't tell you too much about it, but because it has to stay private for now. But um, hopefully, that will enable us to put it into the public domain fairly soon, fairly quickly, and it will go down very well. But when you're reviewing a book, uh, you speak to the person who's done the book, and you try to find out as much about them as possible. ahead of doing the book, so that once the book comes out and the interview comes out, that all does very well.
Mm. What advice would you give someone just starting as a writer and editor and an editor?
Well, the key thing, and certainly it's the advice I would give to you, you've got to have confidence in yourself.
Mm.
It's so easy to be surrounded or to believe that you're surrounded by people who are better than you,
Mm.
but you can only do you, and you give yourself the best chance of having confidence by working hard, not when you're in school or in the office, but when you're in your bedroom, when you've got the time to yourself to write as often as you can. Again, if you do something for long enough, you become good at it. So what you've got to keep doing is writing, committing yourself to improving. Read a lot. What sort of newspapers do you want to go into?
I want to go into a magazine actually.
Great. What magazines do you read at the moment?
I read. I want to read Times, the Times magazine. Lots of magazines.
Right. And do you have a favorite writer in the Times magazines?
Well, I don't have one in the Times magazine, but I do have a favorite writer called Mallory Blackman.
Oh yeah, the outstanding Mallory Blackman. Yeah. Well, she very much is a legend. And the more, again, I'm sure she would tell you herself, a commitment to writing and enjoying writing is really important. So that's something that you could do. Follow her lead, write as often as possible, come up with things to write about, whether it's fiction, whether it's non-fiction, whether it's training yourself to maybe write a 400 word piece every week about one subject. Choose a
Mm.
subject, and every Monday I'm going to write about X subject or Y subject.
Mm.
And it'd be interesting to see. Maybe you could do it twice a week, once on a Monday, once on a Friday.
Yeah.
And then it'd be interesting to look back at those pieces and see how you've improved. Because I did a lot of that when I was at school. And when I got into newspapers and when I had to go to football matches, um, and I had to write almost every day, it was very easy for me to do that.
Mm. Now, we both know that you need a lot of things. Well, you need a few things to be an editor or writer, but what do you consider the most essential qualities for success as a writer and editor?
Confidence, confidence. Um, when you are in a decision making position, you need to be decisive. You need to be able to have confidence in your own ability to make decisions. When you with writing, I would say consistency,
Mm.
because if you keep doing something, I'm repeating myself, but it's a very basic uh, thing. If you keep doing something, you will improve. You will get better. You will want to get better. So I would say it's consistency.
Mm. How do you handle criticism or negative feedback?
Well, there's two kinds of criticism. Excuse me. Criticism that inspires you to get better, and criticism that's not very kind.
Mm.
And constructive criticism, I listen to and see how I can adapt to it. Criticism that's not kind, I know that um, there are lots of people who are unkind with criticism in the world, and I've learned to be able to close that out and to listen to the people whose criticism will help me to improve.
Mm. Can you tell us about your mistake you made in your career and what you learned from it?
Um, Mistake. I don't make mistakes. I'm the mistake I made. Hmm. I'll come back to that one.
Mm. What role has mentorship played in your career, and who's been a particular influential mentor?
My dad was my mentor because my dad basically told me ever since I was a young child, your education will be the key to the world. He was absolutely right. I've been all over the world doing this job to places I never believed I would get to, given that I grew up in a really poor part of East London. And it's my dad and my mum who sacrificed a lot for me. They are my biggest mentors.
Hmm. What do you like to do in your spare time other than hanging out with your family and writing?
I love painting. I'm a very good artist. I shouldn't say that. I should let other people say it. But I am a very good artist. And I took art A level, and I was particularly good at it. I find it very relaxing. Um, and maybe if I'm not a journalist anymore, I'll go back to being an artist.
What type of art do you do?
Well, I loved Cubism. Um, so basically, I loved people like Braque and Picasso and that sort of artist. Um, and I try. I probably don't get anywhere near that level of quality, but I try to have a go at that.
Mm. How do you deal with the pressure and expectations of your fans or readers?
I don't have fans, but readers keep you honest. Um, Something that you might write a column that they disagree with, and they tell you what they think. You might write a story that people contend with, um, and they tell you what they think, and that's really important. It's important to listen to the people that you're writing for, because we don't just operate in a vacuum. We don't operate in an area where we're not accountable. It's really important to be accountable to the people that you're writing for.
Can you describe a moment when you felt you made a real difference in the world through your work?
Yeah, I did an interview with two black referees who, with one black referee, um, asking why there are not more black referees in football. And as a result of that interview, a referees organization for black referees was born. And now there are 4,500 people in that association.
Mm. How did you feel?
Happy for them. Happy for them, because they all work incredibly hard and they don't get the rewards that they should. And so to play a small part in being able to tell people this is happening,
Mm.
it meant a lot.
Mm. What would be a dream project or collaboration?
Um, Maybe for me to be your producer when you are a big star on CNN or CBS News.
Mm. Name one item you can't live without.
My phone. I'm always on my phone. It's really bad. Um, but I'm always trying to keep up with the news. I'm always trying to keep up with everything that's going on. So I would say, yeah, my phone.
What do you hope your legacy will be?
Uh,
Um,
I hope it will be that um, other people realize that this is not a difficult no, it is a difficult industry to operate into, but it's easier than it used to be to be a part of.
mm, yeah. Is there anything else that we may or may have not covered, that we may or may have not covered?
I think you've covered everything, Gloria. You're pretty good at doing this interviewing thing. You asked me something like 30 questions, was it?
25, actually. 25.
25. Really good job. I'm very impressed.
Thank you.
So what is it you want to do? You want to go into newspapers, yeah?
Yeah, I'm not really sure yet. I really like doing tennis. I enjoy my tennis, but I also enjoy doing interviews a lot because I kind of feel when I ask questions, I feel free, feel very interested in what people have to say, their opinions.
Well,
But
I would keep doing it. As I said before, consistency is really important. And if you're able to stay consistent, if you're able to keep doing the interviews, I mean, I can see from what you've done so far that you already have a body of work. And that's important, not to just sit on what you've done, but to keep doing it. So I would definitely suggest you do that.